I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. Our time together is about 15 minutes, give or take. No interviews, no hacks. I share some of my SEO testing and observations, as well as thoughts on our industry. And there are no protected interests in the world of SEO testing. And in these days of almost daily industry disruption, one thing does remain true: the desire to learn what is going on, what is working, and maybe a little why, to help us keep our knowledge, our understanding, and wisdom around SEO sharp. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 48 of Confessions of an SEO. Today's episode will be a little unique. Normally, I talk about AI in general, but today this is going to be much more specific to Google's latest release of their AI, Gemini 3. I'm not going to fill your ears with, "Oh, wow, this is great, look what I did," kind of talk. It's going to be straight from observation and some technical information, followed up with some actionable takeaways. How about that? You can always find the most recent episode of Confessions of an SEO on the website, confessionsofanseo.com. And you're not just going to find the latest one, but you're going to find all 5 seasons. Please subscribe on whatever platform you get your podcast, because it's a great way to both support this podcast and help others find it. Now, last week we had some fun re-exploring some of my conclusions around duplicate content and how helpful content rules really don't like that. And using the concept of vector embedding in a non-engineering type language to explain in a more technical way and come to the same conclusion, but doing so with this tighter language around it. And I shared about something new on the horizon, a way to get a roadmap based on your existing content on how to tighten up the semantic meaning of your content for both AI and search engines. It's for WordPress sites. It's a plugin. And this week, the beta testing is going to launch, and you're invited to apply. So I'll keep the Google form in the description, and we'll see if it's for you. So check out Vector Embedding for 2025, Alec. Yeah, that's a little reference to Jeopardy. Okay, this week, your wishes and dreams have come true. I bring what appears to be signs and server logs that reveal a hidden engine powering Gemini's 3's AI search. For years, I have seen some people grapple with understanding, like, why do I do this daily testing of indexation? And there's nothing you can see in the server logs that will inform you on what Google is doing. And to those who say that, I say Indexzilla came out of the indexing testing, and today's topic as well. Today's episode, I want to share and uncover a fascinating piece of Google's evolving search infrastructure. And it has to do with GoogleOther's expansion. I'll explain more if you don't know what that is. And it now includes a desktop render crawling agent. And I believe it quietly powers the speed and sophistication of Gemini 3, which is their latest search model. Now, this isn't theory, or I should say it isn't just theory. I've been actively testing and observing Google's indexation system daily, tracking the first pass, the HTML crawl, and subsequent JavaScript render crawls, where Googlebot breaks down the pieces. They gather the pieces so they can take it back and unpack it all and understand our pages. Now, to get to where I'm going with this, you kind of need to understand that there is a separate family of crawlers, which is under this umbrella called GoogleOther. You'll find it, if you look at your server logs, you'll find it spelled as one word, all one word. Now, there is a generic one. This is the one that we first observed, and it's designated by that one word, GoogleOther, in the string. That's it. And it started to appear, various sources noted it, around December 2022. Now, that date is kind of significant to me because that's also it was the second, but I think first real helpful content update that started on early in December, on December 2022. Now, I'm going to put the citation in the description so you can see where I pulled this from. But like I say, around the same time, this generic one appeared. And when I started seeing it was February 29th, 2024, Leap Day. Now, since December 2022, in addition to that Chrome, I should say that Google Other that has no Chrome, just that designation of Google Other, they've developed Google Other with mobile Chrome, Google Other Image, Google Other Video, and this is all documented. This is part of this Googlebot / Google Other type, grouping. Now, you will see some reference in your Search Console data. Yes, your Search Console data. You go under Settings, and then you'll see a designation for crawling reports. Click on that. Then you'll see Crawl Stats. And if you scroll down, you see a section. The name of it is called By Googlebot Type. And this is where it breaks down in percentages what types of agents have been crawling your site that Google has sent. And there's a list of them, and there's one called Other Agent Type. Now, I'm saying all this so you know I'm not making this up. You can see this with your own eyes if you have a site in Search Console. Probably most haven't even dived into the settings part. And it initially feels kind of like you're a kid at your aunt's house going through the drawers in the bathroom. Should I be doing this? Well, at least when it comes to Search Console, the answer is yes. So how do I know that data that says it's the number of crawls from Other Agent Type is actually Google Other crawls? Because it doesn't say Google Other in there. Well, I am glad you asked that. One of my sites in the Search Console crawling report it said that there were 231 crawls of Other Agent Type. Now, on that date, when all those crawls came, it just so happens that I keep a rolling spreadsheet of 3 sites, of which this is one of them, and I monitor their server logs on a daily basis. I go through, I parse out all the Google IPs, and I count the crawlers that come, and I have a spreadsheet. It's just like an old-fashioned science notebook. So I looked on that day, which was November 16th, in the crawling report, and in the slot on my spreadsheet for the Google Other with mobile Chrome, lo and behold, I had recorded 231 records from the server logs of that Google Other. So they told me they crawled 231. I have supporting data that says, yep, I saw 231 records in the server logs. So that's how I know that that's definitely where those bot records are stored, the counts. Now, keep in mind, this looks like that the other bucket in Search Console reflects a crawl of any Google Other variation. So there's not an individual designation for each Google Other. In this case, the Google Other with mobile. Now, it looks like, Google has introduced something new into the Google Other family. So I'd like to introduce you to the Google Other with desktop Chrome, meaning it's not mobile, it's for desktop versions of content. And it started showing up around November 20th. So now I'm going to say let's push back out to a wider view because I need to share with you something about Search Console data and Google's release of Gemini 3. Starting the 20th of November, Search Console index page report for every site has stayed stuck at the latest data date of November 17th. And it stayed that way until December 1st. This timing closely matches Google's Gemini 3 release. It officially launched November 18th. So got, data that kind of is the day before. And then they launched Gemini 3 on the 18th. Now, this possible correlation may provide us with important clues about the underlying changes in Google's crawling and indexing infrastructure that appears it would support Gemini's AI capabilities. Now, that brings me back to GoogleOther and why this matters. As I said before, ad nauseum, we know Google employs multiple crawlers and bots. While Googlebot aggressively crawls the web for indexing, GoogleOther is a little less visible, but we've been told, it's a highly versatile crawler. Google uses it for a wide variety of internal Google operations. And I guess I read that and I interpreted that as, well, that's a way to give Googlebot a break. So through my daily crawl observations, watching Google's 2-pass crawl approach. The first pass fetches the raw HTML of our content, and a second pass pulls the JavaScript pieces on those pages to go through the rendering machine. So they have to pull that, and then they send it through literally what they call the rendering machine to see more dynamic content, what's not visible in the source code. So until recently, GoogleOther mainly operated using this mobile Chrome user agent pulling HTML only. Let's think back to that November 18th, November 17th, November 20th, right around in there. Starting around that same time, coinciding with Gemini 3's launch, GoogleOther bot expanded to this desktop render crawl. This means GoogleOther now fetches fully rendered pages like a real desktop browser would, allowing Google to basically access the content that's hidden behind these scripts that traditional crawlers, it's not that they miss them, there's nothing there. This is information that has to be sauced out. This has to be converted into something that search engines will understand. That's why there's a rendering machine. Now, prior to mobile first indexing, which happened around Halloween 2023, I was still watching all these bots, and I watched mobile Googlebot. Their pattern was to crawl the HTML, and the desktop Googlebot rendered the content. And we had two types of sites. We had a primary mobile data, Search Console data, and then we had primary desktop. And once mobile first kind of came, those two things merged together. We no longer had, desktop. We all were mobile. Now I should say, I'm seeing that same behavior, but it's not through Googlebot, but it's through GoogleOther. So my questions are, why would they do that? It's more resources. They were doing fine before without it. So what really changed? And it might have been Gemini 3. Gemini 3, as we can read from its press releases, the most advanced AI model. It's integrated into search. And I'll quote, with multimodal understanding. And I'll explain what that is. And deep reasoning capabilities. So basically, Gemini 3 comprehends texts, images, video, and generates what they call immersive, interactive search experiences. In plain language, it's like having a conversation with a search engine or exploring a place virtually rather than just reading static text. So you're a part of it. Now, to power this type of user experience, Gemini 3 needs access to fully rendered, rich web pages, not just static HTML, to extract semantic meaning, as well as all this layered content that's in there. So building a new dedicated AI crawler from scratch would probably have been a massive undertaking, expensive, and maybe unnecessary because this is Google, right? They already have a system that is already designated that's why I'm thinking that instead of doing that, creating a new AI crawler, they just expanded a family of crawlers that from the beginning was designed to be able to do this. This is where I'm going with this. GoogleOther's new desktop render crawl capability sort of fulfills this role. It feeds Gemini 3 with the freshest, deepest content in what we would consider a cost-effective way. This sharing of the crawling infrastructure, you think it would allow for faster and smarter AI results without duplicating crawling efforts, right? So now that we know this, what should we as SEO pros take from this? So first, I'm going to say regularly check your server logs for Google Other crawl activity, especially this new desktop user agent. This crawl I've seen as a direct indicator that Gemini 3 can discover and analyze your fully rendered content. Now, that citation earlier, when I talked about the initial discovery of GoogleOther's, was a webmaster forum where they talked about blocking this aggressive new crawler. So I hope whoever did block that kept notes and they can undo that instruction, because otherwise they're going to start complaining about their content and their sites are being ignored. Secondly, focus on making your JavaScript-heavy pages crawl-friendly. You really want to make sure important content is accessible during desktop render crawls. I'd even go so far as to say, if you have the ability to convert to server-side rendering, I think you should. Thirdly, pay attention to crawl frequency and behavior changes since November 17th. My tests show, that crawl data went mostly static, was likely reflecting Google's crawl infrastructure transitions, as they are starting now to support Gemini in search. Finally, improve servers responsiveness, how fast your server will respond to Google Other crawlers. Now, this may also be a reason going back a while Google engineers used a Core Web Vitals club, threatening, if you aren't fast enough, Core Web Vitals might become a ranking factor. Because fast responses will help Google Other efficiently process your pages, which also there's other reasons to do it, traditional ranking as well as driving, AI visibility. GoogleOther's expansion to desktop rendering crawling, I believe, is an essential and probably little understood part of how Gemini 3 delivers this sort of cutting-edge AI search. My real-world crawl and indexation observations kind of confirm this evolution started around mid-November and onward. So attention to technical SEO strategies. They're going to actively monitor and optimize for this crawler's behavior. I think those that do will be better positioned for success as the AI transforms our search experience. So keep an eye on those crawl logs. Ensure your content is fully renderable and not just visible when it's not, visible in the HTML. So stay vigilant in this AI era. That's it for me this week. Thank you for being a listener. I appreciate the comments that come in. So if you have one, feel free. You can text to me at 512-222-3132. Indexilla is my indexer tool. You can find it at indexilla.io. Now more than ever, AI makes the indexation of your content into Google essential. So don't leave it to chance. Also, starting today, all paid levels of Indexilla accounts will be receiving the crawl or no crawl reports. Thank you for listening, and until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs and the GURPS.